Welcome back to the In the Blues mailbag. My name's Shane. This is where I take 5 quick questions and I answer them in video format. Now, if you've already asked me a question and I didn't get around to it, I've got the archive of questions in a folder. You don't have to re-ask the same one over and over. I'll get to as many as I can if I think they're relevant to the channel. So hang in there if I haven't answered your question. So the first one's from Rendy Wendy. He says, or she says, what's the top 5 blues guitarists that influenced your playing? Now, for me, there's a number of them that it's kind of changed over the years a little bit, but I've got to say the first guy that I heard when I was living in Michigan was Eric Clapton. Well, not the first blues guy ever, but the first one that really pushed me to want to learn blues was back in 1999 when I heard From the Cradle. That was easily the driving force behind me wanting to learn blues. I'd been listening to John Lee Hooker and a few other guys before that, but once I heard From the Cradle, I went, that's the sound. How do I do that? How do I make that kind of music? So for me, that was a big sort of push from that Eric Clapton From the Cradle. So I'm going to put him as number 1. Number 2, without question, my favorite blues guitarist is Albert King. I love his phrasing. I love his bends. I love his style. His singing's great. He's got that really deep vibrato in his voice. His band are great. And he's one of the few bands or one of the few rhythm sections where the drummer's always playing 16th notes. And I love that feel. I think it just turns everything kind of funky and sort of just super groovy, man. You can't beat those 16th note drummers. I think they sound great. So Albert King, a definite number 2. The third guy would have to be B.B. King. B.B. King's influenced just about everybody in terms of blues. His just phrasing and vibrato style is really cool. I don't really play his vibrato style, but I like what he does on guitar. His phrasing is fantastic. You go back to the old days, there's some really tasty electric guitar playing and just stuff that's a little bit different. The fourth guy, without question, would have to be T-Bone Walker. He's one of my favorite players of all time. He'd probably actually be above B.B. King for me personally. I just love his vocal. I love his sound, his phrasing. He's just got some really classy runs that I haven't seen too many people replicate even up until this day. I just think he's just a monster player. And he played clean and has got that jazz influence, but his vocal and just that entire sound, you know, it's got that old sound that just works extremely well. T-Bone is just one of my favorites, no doubt about it. And on any given day, this order could probably change, but these are the 5, I guess in no particular order now, that would be definitely some of my major influences. The 5th is someone I'm going to add to the list. I could have probably have put Buddy Guy or any number of other guitar players like Robert Cray in this list as well, but in straight up blues guitar players, I'm going to pick Chris Kane over here. He kind of reignited the fire for me musically a while back. I was kind of getting bored of my sound and my playing, and I heard him, and it sort of went, wow, there's this side of blues, you know, and I started sort of butchering some of his licks, trying to work them out. But just his vibe, his presence, his vocal, he kind of sounds a little bit like B.B. King vocally. He can play that style. He's played with Albert King as well, so he's got those big bends, and he's played with the Robin Ford Band and all those kind of guys, but he's got so many great chops. If you don't know Chris Kane, check out this video up in the cards. You'll be glad you did. This next question's from Jojo the Robo. He says, if you had to gig without an amp, like directing to a board, what would your pedal board consist of? So it would be the same board that I generally would take to plug into my Fender amplifier. So I'd have an overdrive pedal or 2 overdrives. I would also have a delay, but I would also bring a reverb pedal, but my amp sim would be the Amoon American Sound or the Joyo American Sound or any of those kind of pedals like that. I've got the Amoon one now, but I've had the Joyo in the past. They're identical. So that would be my rig. I've actually gigged with the Kemper direct to the board, and I didn't like the flexibility of it enough to want to ever do that again. The Kemper's going to be living here at home for recording and all that kind of stuff. But the cool thing about having those analog pedals on the floor is if you need to change something, you can crouch down and just change it. It's nice and simple. I did a podcast about this exact topic. I just feel like when you've got analog effects on the floor, it's really easy just to modify your sound. When you're plugged into the Kemper, it's a lot harder to sort of see what's going on and then to also adjust it from there. The Kemper's probably a classier sound going into the PA, but it's very limiting. So in terms of what I've got on my board right now, I've got the Carrera Buffalo Effects Overdrive pedal, or the Buffalo Effects Carrera Overdrive. It's an absolute beast. I love it. It works great with my Fender amp. I've got the Greenchild boost pedal, which is just a volume boost called the Mr. Boost. It's really, really cool. I got the VS Audio Vibler, another great pedal. And I've also got the Citec digital delay on my board, and that's what I used just the other night playing straight into my Fender amp, and it sounded amazing. So that would be what I would take. I would also take the Keeley Omni Reverb or an Anasounds reverb tank and have that before the actual amp sim pedal, but I also have the delay after it. I found that that works best for most of the times we've used this exact situation. For whatever reason, the delay sounds better after the actual amp sim pedal. It's kind of weird, but that's how I'd run it. So yeah, there you go. This next question's from a username called Justin. I'm not exactly too sure, so I'll just put it on screen. He says, would you rather be in a 7-man band or a 3-man band? All right, so after years of playing live, a 3-man band would be way better. A trio, no doubt about it. And I'm going to tell you why. It's harder work as a guitarist and a singer to get away with just playing in a 3-piece band. But it's so much easier to organize. If you've ever been in a band, one of the biggest challenges, without question, is organizing people, right? And then the more people you get involved, the more parts that need to be established. So if you've got a 7-man band, that essentially means you probably got some horn sections, a keyboard player, and finding people that are like-minded who don't want to play over everybody, that also leave a lot of space and who also can come up with parts is a huge challenge. So for me, being the kind of guitarist I am, I like to play in a 3-piece band over a 7-piece band. Ideally, though, a 4-piece band is probably my favorite of all time because you can just hand off some solos or whatever to somebody else from time to time and mix up the sound. But there's something special about a trio when it works. I've done it a lot over the years. I started in a trio. I've also played, I think, in an 8-piece band in San Francisco. We played the Boom Boom Room a couple of years ago with a 5-piece horn section, and that was epic, right? But there's a lot going on, and you've got to contribute in whatever way you can. It's a very different gig doing a gig like that as opposed to just playing in a 3-piece band where you can sort of let the blues kind of shred thing happen, you know what I mean? So yeah, in terms of what I love, I would take a trio over a 7-piece band, no questions about it, unless I was playing enough that it could be really, really organized. And lastly, we have a questions from Evan Jonathan 87. He says, what's the worst guitar that I've ever played? LOL. So without question, it would have to be a 1970s Fender Strat. It was a CBS era one. It weighed way more than any Les Paul I've ever picked up, and it looked god awful. It was just an ugly looking electric guitar. Not only that, I think it had a 3-way toggle switch for whatever reason, so you didn't get those in-between sounds. I'm not too sure if that was modded, after the fact or what, but it was terrible, and it played horribly. Everything about it, because it weighed so much, you pick it up, you're like, where's all this weight coming from? And then you go to play it, and it was choking out. It was just a terrible instrument. It could probably be fixed to some extent in terms of, how if you put new frets in there or the frets were completely worn. It was a used guitar, but it was just arguably the worst experience I've ever had playing an electric guitar. It also had like fence wire rusty strings just to enhance the experience. So just as a lefty, I found this one in the United States when I was over there maybe 5 years ago or something now, and it was just a horrible, horrible guitar. As soon as I looked at it, I went, oh, that look kind of, I'll give it a go. It looks all right. It's a Strat. It's lefty, and it's not the bog standard Squire sitting in the shop. Let's grab a look. And it was awful. It's probably still sitting there. Thanks for watching, folks. This is Shane. This is 5 Quick Questions. I hope you like this little mailbag series. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. I appreciate that. If I've missed your question, hang in there. It might still be coming up on a future episode. Most of these questions were from a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, just keep an eye on my feed on Instagram or on YouTube. I'll leave some links in the description below. Subscribe and click the bell if you want to be notified of the next one of these videos. Thanks for watching. Catch you soon. See ya.